everyone. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Poker Central podcast, joined by my good friends Jeff Platt and his dog Buddy, who will for sure make an appearance today on the podcast. We are here to do a watch party. We're watching the first episode of Season 7 of High Stakes Poker, so please join us for that. Give us your questions and comments in the chat. We are live on both Facebook and YouTube, so whatever platform you're using, please make sure to hit us up. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Jeff, first and foremost, you had a huge alcohol delivery. I could hear the truck backing up down your street. Are you all set for the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, today was a pretty big day, Remko. Got some cold beer, got some tequila, got some wine. Pretty good, at least for the next week or so. So I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm fired up. I'm happy to be here with you. And I'm happy that I'm not, considered a guest on this program, considering the illustrious list of guests you guys have had, especially over this last month or so. But to just fill in for Brent Hanks is something that's a lot less intimidating. So let's do this.
I mean, you can't do much worse than Norman Chad and Barstool Nate, so I think you're safe there. I think you're really, really safe. We are watching the 7th season of High Stakes Poker, episode 1. We'll, turn up the volume every now and then when the spot gets interesting, but we're going to have a lineup that's filled with familiar faces, including a very chubby Phil Galfond, which is always fun to watch. Jeff, let's start with this as the intro is rolling, and we'll see some beautiful nightlife scenes of Vegas as well, I'm sure. What's your memory of High Stakes Poker, and were you a fan in the moment, sort of following along with this?
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking about this right before we went on the air, and season 7 is more of a blur to me than the previous seasons, even though that doesn't really make sense timeline wise. I remember just being, borderline obsessed with the show throughout the first couple of years. And then season 6 and 7, the show kind of underwent some changes. I know in season 7, Norm Macdonald jumps into the mix. And so I don't remember season 7 quite as much, but I mean, this show is just, all-time legendary. What can you say about it that hasn't been said already? I am glad, Remko, that we get our guy Haralabob in the mix. I think.
Yeah, I think we get him later in the episode, and it's going to be fun to see him. He, of course, mostly known as a basketball genius / wizard. Now with the Dallas Mavericks, your big team. So you must have been a fan of him before he even did that. So that must have helped a bit.
Yeah, we're very happy to have Haralabob as a part of our organization. Notice how I say we, our organization, like I'm a real part of this team. So Remko, you and I have always been following Haralabob along because I think he merges his interest in poker, in sports betting. He's a massive hoops fan. And I never thought that he would actually join an organization. I know that certain teams have been after him now for a while, but here he is as a real part of the Mavericks. And yeah, I'm pretty fired up about that. That's all the Mavs talk. And,
right.
For anybody listening, he's like, oh my God, this guy.
Well, I mean, I did this on purpose to get it out of your system before we're in the middle of a poker hand. And you're like, did you know that he is on the Dallas Mavericks? Nathan says on Facebook, hello from Colorado Springs. Congrats on the restock of drinks, Jeff.
Oh, thank you very much, Nathan. Appreciate your support in this very important endeavor.
Yeah, everyone, please let us know how you're doing, where you're watching from. We'd love to engage. I know it's quarantine time. We're all trying to make things happen. I actually have a bottle of wine sitting right here, but it's a little early for that.
Yeah.
So we're sticking to the sparkling water, which, I don't know, it's about as good as it gets. It sort of makes you feel as though you're drinking alcohol when you have sparkling water going.
Are you a real fancy sparkling water guy?
No, this is the Sprouts basic stuff. So nothing crazy here.
Gotcha.
Kara Scott, by the way, host here of Season 7, as you guys can see in the background. Doyle, Brunson, Barry Greenstein, and Antonio Esfandiari, the 3 characters that have played in every single season of High Stakes Poker. Quiz question for you, Jeff. Who was the fourth person who played all 7 seasons of High Stakes Poker?
The 4th person, let's see, would be Negreanu?
Yes, correct. Move on to the next round. Okay. We have some new faces here on High Stakes Poker. Robert Croak, Bill Klein, haven't played in previous seasons. Actually, let me just go back to those chip counts here. Phil Ruffin.
Look at Bill Klein too in the sport coat and dress shirt.
But he's wearing tennis shoes for sure.
For sure.
No doubt about it. Phil Ruffin sits down with $500,000. Bill Klein has $500,000. Then we have Doyle, Vanessa Selbst, Barry Greenstein, Antonio, Robert Croak. He's the Silly Bands guy. And David Peat Viffer sitting at the table as well. He, of course, became really famous on Poker After Dark mostly, and then later on got a seat on High Stakes Poker as well. Vanessa Selbst, by the way, long time coming since we've seen her.
Yeah.
People in the chat, let's see. We got Zachary, we got Kit K, we got Ian Little asking what year was this. I want to say this was 2011 or 2010, just before Black Friday. I believe this season was taped just before Black Friday. And I want to say that perhaps some of these episodes were never even aired on TV, the last few. But you can correct me on that if you know the inside scoop on this. But all the episodes are available on PokerGO right now. So you can watch all of this season on PokerGO. So that's kind of exciting. Jeff, I want to ask you about something that you've been really busy with the last couple of weeks. The Keep the Lights On initiative to raise money for freelancers in poker media. While we watch this hand in which money's already being splashed around, can you give us a little rundown of what you've been working on?
Yeah, sure. This is to just help out our friends in the poker media freelance world specifically. Listen, we know that so many people have been affected by this coronavirus crisis, by everything that's been going on right now, and so. This was just a fantastic idea from Tana and Haley at Run Good. They teamed up with Poker Central and Global Poker to create this initiative to help these people out. I mean, let's take a live reporter, for example. And Remko, I know you have some experience in this, but somebody who has their schedule just planned out for the next 6 months. They're going to travel from this tournament to that tournament, and they have it all laid out. It's all scripted, and then that's all just ripped away. Boom. Just in a split second. And so not only is their income taken away, but since they aren't under the umbrella of a company, since they're freelance, no benefits either. And so it's just a trying time for so many people that we know and love. So we wanted a way to help them out. And the basics of it, I'm streaming some global poker action for Team PokerGo, Jamie Kerstetter for Team Run Good, the Golden Blazer for Team Global Poker. There's a bit of a competition involved, but mostly it's just it's just raising money for the poker media freelance world.
Yeah, no, and that's going great. There's 3 streams a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You're back up on the PokerGo Facebook channel on Friday to do some streaming. You're doing terrific on that first session. Come really hot out of the gates, running up massive stacks. Give us the short summary of how it's been going so far for you.
Yeah, so we each play 10 tournaments per stream, 1 stream per week. And there is a certain amount of money that's donated to the fund for every tournament that you cash. So obviously there's a lot of pressure going on. I busted a tournament on the very first hand that I played. I thought it was re-entry. It was not. So there's 0 for 1 right off the bat. Built some stacks, bust out effectively on the bubble. So I'm 0 for 6, Remko, like a couple hours in. And I'm just terrified. Like, oh my God, I'm just going to raise no money. This is going to be an absolute disaster. I ended up cashing 2 tournaments, just losing 38 sweeps coins on global poker. And so we have some room to build that bankroll over the next 2 weeks. Jamie Kerstetter last week did go 0 for 10, but she rallied this week and cashed in 5 different tournaments yesterday to raise a decent amount of money for this initiative.
Wow, that's awesome. So yeah, if you guys want to check out more of that, I'll be putting the link in the chat. So if you guys want to donate and give Jeff some support, he definitely needs it. We all need it, and the people in poker media need it. So this works in many different ways. As we just saw, Robert Croak and Vanessa Selbst go battle a little bit with an overpair against Vanessa Selbst. Big cards there on the turn. Croak folding to jacks there. A really interesting situation. For the people who are watching and wondering, what is going on? What am I watching right now? This is the Poker Central podcast in a bit of a different format because we are celebrating that all 7 seasons of high-stakes poker are now available on PokerGo. So Jeff Platt and I are watching the first episode of Season 7 with you guys, going through some of the latest poker news action, and maybe every now and then we'll turn it up, and if we see a big hand, we'll get involved with that.
Phil Ruffin, Remko, doesn't he own Treasure Island now?
I believe so.
Yes.
And he said that with $500,000, which is pretty epic. It's always it's always fun when you cover the table when you're the big stack, just to sit down, just show some strength there.
Yeah, absolutely. Also owns Circus, which he bought from MGM Resorts, and he is a partner in Trump Tower.
Wow.
In Las Vegas.
So it's safe to say he has endless money, limitless. There's no limits to his money.
Ooh, look at Vanessa here. Just flatting the queens on the button.
Let's see if this turns into anything.
If you think he hasn't, it means you haven't played the props he plays. Yeah, everyone does.
He has slept worse than a big boy, don't worry.
Yeah.
Every person.
Antonio's in with the suited connectors, and Ruffin comes along.
Very good. You got one more coming. 4 players.
Set of
Oh,
threes
baby.
for
Wow.
Mr. Ruffin, and this could be trouble for Vanessa.
This is trouble for sure.
I mean, look at everybody's got a little piece.
Antonio with top pair will ignite
Wow.
the match.
Just think of the dynamics and how they get influenced by Antonio leading there with the pair of nines and then
Yeah.
the hands that are still behind him. I mean, maybe this helps Vanessa. We'll find out, but it's definitely interesting.
Now Doyle's got the gut shot, but don't expect him to stay frisky with this hand.
Let us know in the chat how you feel about the way this hand is playing out, because obviously this can go so many different ways right now.
And now Vanessa.
Uh-oh.
She's trying to figure out what to do.
This is trouble for sure.
I've got to believe she thinks she has the best hand right now.
Vanessa, of course, known as a tournament player, so
Yeah.
I'm sure she plays cash too, but back in these days, she was like a top tournament crusher, and here comes a big raise.
Oh, boy.
So she's going to raise to 63,800. That's more
Wow.
than enough protection for her queens against an ordinary hand or draw. But
Make it 100.
there's an extraordinary
Oh, boy. Felt a little excited.
Ruffin. He wants in that hand immediately and plays out of turn. That should be a big signal to Vanessa.
That is a
Make it
huge
100.
tell.
Makes that easier. I'm
The,
sorry.
the, a very small size
Arms have to
click
be going
back
off for Vanessa right here.
instantly when it wasn't even his turn to act.
You got raised.
Viffer, translation, you're beat.
You have a good hand? You have a period?
And Vanessa starts to talk.
I haven't looked yet, so.
Oh, yeah, of course, Phil.
She's fishing for information that Ruffin just gave her with that raise.
But do you like your hand?
It's okay.
It's okay,
This is
but
incredible.
not super amazing. God, I didn't expect that. I have to say, I didn't expect that.
What could she be thinking? Tens or jacks, the only hand she's a big favorite against.
All right, I'm all in.
Oh,
Call.
boy.
Oh, my
Snap
God.
call. And she knows she's dead now.
Yeah. Nice hand.
I mean, Jeff Platt, I know you're a top level poker player yourself.
Yeah, but just top level.
At the top of the list. And people in the chat also let us know, would you have folded queens against Phil Ruffin in this position? Jeff, I know it's so easy to say with the cards in front of us, but doesn't this feel like one of those spots where queens could really hit the muck quite easily?
I would think so. I mean, it makes a ton of sense to put a player like Ruffin on 4s or 3s. He limped in pre. He called a raise. He just called on the flop. He 3-bet you on the flop. He 3-bet you small. He acted out of turn. It's just, it seems like there were a lot of factors that could have gotten you to fold queens. And then let's say he doesn't have pocket 3s or pocket 4s and pocket 9s. He probably does raise pre-flop. I mean, maybe he has ace-x of clubs, and then you still aren't in fantastic shape. I would think that the queen should be a fold. I don't know. You mentioned, Remko, that Vanessa was certainly more of a tournament player this year, and I think the flatting with queens on the button kind of back in the 2011 days was kind of a popular, tricky tournament play. In a cash game, I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out when you know that Ruffin's probably going to be in there, Doyle's raising, he's going to be in there, and then Antonio is most likely going to be in there with anything playable.
Let's see what she has to say.
Threes. When you're looking at him and talking to him on the flop, what kind of information are you trying to get from him?
Well, I was really just trying to get him to say something about my hand. I mean, I had the pot got bloated because Doyle made a big raise pre-flop and there was a lot of action. And I decided to flat call Doyle, which sometimes I re-raise there and sometimes I'm gonna flat call. You know, if I flat call, it can be really profitable. And then when it's 4 ways, Antonio leads out. And I know he can lead out with a really wide range. And when Phil flat calls, you know, I'm hoping to get value because I've heard that he's like a less experienced player. And so I'm hoping to make a raise and get some value out of my hand. When he then re-raises me on the flop, it's a very strong line, especially when an amateur takes it, so I was a little bit conflicted. I was trying to get any information, and then, you know, he told me he had an okay hand. But do you like your hand?
It's okay.
I put it in based on the information that I had, and that just happened. I don't know.
But she basically said the information she had was a sign that he had a strong hand.
Right. And I think maybe she got stuck into thinking of I under-rep my hand pre-flop, and therefore I can't fold queens right now. So like that's sort of what it feels like a little bit.
I set the trap with queens, so I have to kind of follow through with this trap that I've set.
Yeah. Tino says on YouTube, player type 100% a fold. All old guys are nits. Doesn't matter how rich they are never raising with combo draws. Literally just the nuts. Thanks, Tino, for that. That really cracked me up. That is probably a correct assessment for me, a 1-2 player who probably also, you know, has. I have probably lost the most money in this exact scenario where I'm just like, I have a strong hand, but then they always have a stronger hand. It's just part of it's part of the.
And you're like, how can I ever fold an overpair though?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't fold an overpair on a 9-4-3 2 clubs flop. But yes, you can. You can do it, people.
Exactly, you can do it. Let us know in the chat what you usually play, where you play, and what you like to play, and maybe what you miss playing right now. And Jeff, I know for you, that's probably the Red Rock Nightly. Am I right?
Yeah, you know, we had a good run, Remko, when you and I played the good old Red Rock Nightly. I believe we final tabled it really because we were the best poker players around. So I miss a live poker tournament. I miss the atmosphere, the vibe, the environment of it all, and I hope we can get it back at least somewhat soon.
Here's an interesting raise. Viffer making it 24K with middle pair and a flush draw against the aces of Bill Klein. Let's have a look.
Like king, queen.
Raise.
Decides to find out.
Back in this day on the flop, there was a lot of 3-betting, like a lead, a raise, and a re-raise. Whereas now you'd see a lot more just flatting there, potentially from Klein.
And one of the funny things that always stands out to me about watching poker from back in the day is how large the bets on the flop were in relation to the pot. Right now we're seeing half bets and quarter pot, that sort of stuff. Back then it was like 3/4 pot. Just
it's like, let's go, bomb, bomb, bomb.
Exactly. All in.
And Klein starts thinking again.
Thanks, Norm.
Didn't expect that.
Wow.
You've heard that before.
That's what I say.
That's what they always say. Everybody's double parked.
Everybody holds exactly still as long as they can and say,
Call.
And he calls. It doesn't take us long to get to our second 400,000 plus pot.
Look at the equities there. 50-50 on the nose.
Yeah.
Just one.
And the pro asked the zillionaire
Go
to run
Klein
twice.
says,
I love
Just
that
once.
one time, just punish.
No again is
Like
the
he wants to
answer.
maximize the swings to give to charity. That's awesome.
One way or the other.
Yeah, right?
Klein dodges the turn.
Just flipping a coin for almost half a million.
But not the river. Peat is going to double up.
The Vifster.
And Viffer needs it much more than Bill Klein does.
That much is true.
Man, this is
that much is true.
so painful if you're taking a big shot like Viffer is, and then, he's like, you want to run it twice? And Bill Klein's like, nope, just once. Let's go.
I just want to absolutely bury you if you can't hit.
James Harris saying in the chat, I usually play 2-5 no limit. Want to start playing tournaments if casinos ever open again. I play at parks and sometimes at Borgata. Yeah, that East Coast grind is definitely full of amazing tournaments. Lots of series with small buy-ins.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, James, you can find some awesome tournaments to play once everything opens back up. And Jeff, that brings me to one of the topics here today on the show. I don't have the photo to show here, but you guys have probably all seen it on Twitter. This plexiglass construction on the poker table. For people who haven't seen it yet, this is basically a construction that would avoid any sort of human contact at the table, but you would still be able to play live. Jeff, how do you feel about this? And do you think this is a feasible, solution to the crisis we're currently dealing with?
No. First, I should say that I appreciate and respect all new ideas as to how we can get through this, as to how we can bring poker back as sooner rather than later. Seems to be the most popular opinion, but I hate this idea. Are you telling me, Remko, that if I'm playing 9-handed in this plexiglass setup of sorts, and I was in seat 5 and you were in seat 4, and you had coronavirus, that this glass was going to protect me from your coronavirus because you literally can't sneeze on me at that point when we're each, seated properly? I mean, I just don't think it's a good enough protective measure. I would much rather just wait.
Right.
Just wait to open up any poker rooms. I understand that, Nevada Gaming might say, hey, if you want to reopen your poker rooms, they can only be 3 or 4-handed. I know that it might not be profitable for a poker room to run at 3-handed or 4-handed, especially with the extra cleaning measures that they have to put into place. I'd much rather just sit back and just wait 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 some more, and then bring back live poker, how it used to be, just with more cleaning measures in place. I think the whole plexiglass setup is more for show, more for PR, like, hey, look what we're doing. This is why we can reopen, because we have this unbelievable, machine of sorts that's going to protect everybody from getting coronavirus. And sure, if I'm sitting by Remko and he gets up and then he coughs, then I'm screwed. But as long as he's, within the glass, then I'm going to be fine. I don't like this idea at all.
Yeah, because also one of the first things that I thought of is you still have to grab your cards, grab your chips, scratch your nose, cough in your hands. And, we all know from experience, and you guys watching will also have seen this many times before. The poker room is one of the least hygienic places in the entire casino. People are, just touching their face all the time. They are eating food. I have seen people eat a salad with their hands. Like, I've seen some of the most disgusting things ever in a poker room. And of course, this is likely now to change at least a little bit. People might be more aware of personal hygiene. So hey, big plus there. Maybe the Rio hallways will smell a little bit better during the summer. Who knows? But still, the plexiglass solution is not a solution, but it's probably maybe a way for people to, feel safer to come back, even though to me it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But I'm with you on that just wait. Let's just wait until poker comes back in the normal way, because in all honesty, I'll be back playing poker at some point. But if they reopen between now and September, there is no chance I'm going to play the nightly at the GVR or at Red Rock here in Las Vegas. There's just no chance. I'm just not going to do it.
But with that said, what's your prediction for turnout? Like, let's just say for hypothetical reasons, in 3 weeks, Green Valley Ranch opens up and they say, hey, we're good for business. We're going to shut off, 1 out of every 2 or 3 slot machines. So we have a little bit of space. We have some social distancing. We're going to say 7 max at the poker tables. How much of a crowd do you think will fill that spot?
Let me answer that question after Selbst just shoved on Esfandiari with ace-queen against ace-queen. Let's see where this goes.
I like this table.
As you can tell by his smile over to Viffer.
Some days you're the pigeon, some days you're the statue.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the moon.
Put your card protector in.
Wow.
Thank God,
Wow.
Antonio.
And a great play by Vanessa.
Nice hand.
Vanessa's probably getting some of that mojo back after losing that hand against Phil Ruffin.
Yeah, I feel like ace queen for both of these players in that day were effectively aces, but I guess not.
Right. So back to your question. If GVR opens back up, am I going to play the nightly? No, absolutely no chance. Like, there's no chance I'm going to play any tournament or any cash game for quite some time. Like, I don't want to be the guinea pig going back to casinos with the risk of one person showing up there that has the virus and who's still able to transmit it. So, let this thing run its course. Be safe. If you are in a place where online poker is available, go play online poker. Hone your craft and get better, and then you'll probably enjoy it a bit more too. We're seeing some questions in the comments. Kit K420 is very excited about the Viffer versus Klein battle, and it's probably the first of many, as Kara Scott is here chatting with Bill Klein. Some links in the chat as well. You can now indeed watch all seasons of High Stakes Poker on PokerGo, so that is one thing that you have to be aware of. Ian Sharif says, I think it's 1 year until it's safe. Ian, I think that's a very fair assessment. I think a year is probably a reasonable period of time, but I do think we'll see poker back well before that, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Pretorius says, Norm's commentary kills it. I miss these old games. I mean, to be honest, to be really blunt, like, I think season 7 is my least favorite. I think with PokerGo bringing back high stakes poker, and yes, you heard that correctly, PokerGo bringing back high stakes poker, that means that it's going to come back, in case you didn't notice. it's going to be tremendous. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be cash on the table. It's going to be incredible to watch. And we're going to, bring back characters, young and old. We're going to have a lot of people playing that you guys all love to watch. So, get caught up on all 7 seasons first and then go back into this. Dave Nichols, Jeff, is saying online poker is boring to me. I like showing the player the bluff to their face, watching them be like, "Oh no, he didn't." Is that sort of a correct assessment of how you feel?
Yeah, I'm with you, Dave. I can't wait for that feeling again, even though I never get any bluffs through. But the thought of it is at least amazing. But I mean, Remko, you said it. It's probably a year. It all depends on when a vaccine comes out, right? I mean, not to dive too deep into coronavirus, but that is a huge tipping point as to when we can resume life as normal. And anything before a vaccine is just going to have to be done with the utmost precautionary measures.
All right, money's flying once again.
I love it too.
Well,
How about
Vanessa
this?
Can't call this.
Vanessa raised to 3,200. He just rips it for 203K.
Unbelievable.
You love me?
I don't love any men.
No?
Back to Don't Ask, Don't Tell by Doyle.
How about Todd Brunson? Do you love him?
I think he's going to
He's
take.
thinking about it.
He's going to take the 5th on that.
Show
one.
like the 9-8.
It's close between him and Casper.
Show like the 9-8. Just make her sick. One time.
That wouldn't make me that sick.
I guess we get to see it in a couple months.
My sickness.
I never show my cards.
So very simple.
I mean, what's the purpose there, Viffer? I mean, you're probably watching. What's the purpose of the ace-10 shove there over a 3,200 raise?
There's no purpose.
No, there's no
purpose. If she calls, you're screwed. And you just lit $200,000 on fire. If she doesn't call, which is going to happen the majority of the time, then you win the $3,200 or whatever. There's probably 4K out there in total, or maybe a little bit more. I mean, that's not, unless you know that 0% of the time you're getting called. I don't think that's a plus EV play, as they say.
It's a good reminder how different poker was back in the day. Viffer was one of the most feared cash game players around. 5s, 9s. Let's flop some sets here now. Nathan Nichols responds to Dave Nichols on Facebook, no relation, which is funny, saying that it's also the best feeling ever to pull off something like that, which I definitely agree with. There's no other way about it. Tino is saying online poker has been so juicy in New Jersey. Well, Tino, I hope you're on the right end of that. I hope it's working out for you, because obviously everyone is trying to play online poker in whatever way, shape, or form they can. Zachary is saying 7 is definitely the least entertaining, but has its moments. I agree with you there. Let us know in the comments what your favorite season is of high stakes poker. I mean, you guys are probably all fans. You watched most of it, so let us know what you think your favorite season is. I'm gonna go with season 4. I think 4, 3, 2, 1. Those 4 are the best.
Yeah, I was thinking 3 off of the top of my head, just for the Brad Booth, Phil Ivey moments in that season. 4 is really good. And then 1 stands out to me just for the originality of it all. Like, hey, here we are. We're playing a cash game, not a tournament, and we're playing it for these massive, massive stakes.
Kit K is asking, was this Viffer's first TV appearance? No, he was actually on season 1, I believe, of Poker After Dark back in 2007. Viffer was very, very frequently a guest on Poker After Dark, and this was, I believe, his first appearance on High Stakes Poker. So he was more so a Poker After Dark player and became quite a legendary there, battling with Tom Dwan, Patrick Antonius. They had big PLO games on there. Also all available in the vault on PokerGo if you want to dive back into that stuff. Wow, chat's going crazy. Lots of stuff going on there. Shout out to all you guys, Pretorius, Blair. I appreciate all you guys reaching out to us. It's been really fun to go through this, and I haven't seen this episode in a very long time, so I don't even know what's going to happen, which makes it even better. Dave Nichols asks, who do you think is the greatest player in the world? Jeff, I'm going to pose that question to you. Give me 2 answers, both all time as far as career legacy and current. Who do you have?
Current, I'm going to go with Stephen Chidwick, just because I believe he's the most dominant tournament player in the world, and I think that the players who play at those super high roller level tournaments would agree with that. So that's a pretty easy call for me to go Chidwick right now. As far as all time is concerned,
you can go many ways with this. You have to provide context when you give this answer, because there's different reasons to pick someone.
And I think I would go with Doyle Brunson for his longevity in the game. Like, He's crushed the cash game scene. He's crushed the tournament scene. And he's done it over the course of what now, Remko, like 60 years or so. And that's just such an impressive overall resume to me. And, maybe like I would never say he was like the very best player in a tournament, or maybe wasn't always the very best player in a cash game, but just the way he succeeded year after year for so long. That's how I envision all time, just putting the entire resume together. I would go with Doyle Brunson. How about you?
I'm going to answer that question right after this hand, because this river spot turned out to be quite interesting. I'm going to turn up the volume a little bit. You guys let us know in the chat how you feel about this raise by Barry Greenstein. This is a very interesting hand. I had no idea Barry had the guts to do this against a guy like Bill Klein.
But it looks like he might be thinking of making a value bet here. And indeed he is.
23,000.
So Vanessa's gone. And Barry posturing, but he will be gone in a moment as well.
Heavy breathing from Norm MacDonald.
Maybe not. Maybe he's going to pay him off.
Raise 100.
Yes. Whoa.
Wow.
He just raised it 100,000.
Oh, right.
He clearly does not give Klein credit for a flush here. He puts him on queens or a bluff, and he has put enough money in to cover both options.
But if he's put him on a bluff, he'd probably just call.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting with, especially with no diamond in his hand, Remko, right? I mean, we talk about blockers. He had no blockers there. He just had 2 black nines. That's a really interesting check raise there from Greenstein. That had to be just on pure
read.
Pure read.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Barry for never being afraid to put his money in. We've seen him get demolished on high stakes poker a few times, most notably by Tom Dwan, of course, King Queen against aces. Here's a look at the chip counts. Ruffin, of course, grabbing a lot of money from Vanessa Selbst, Viffer doubling through Bill Klein, and Barry just grabbing some chips here on this most recent hand versus Bill Klein. Back to the question, who do I think the best poker player is? And Jeff, this is going to sound really boring, but Stephen Chidwick is definitely the guy to go with here these days. Yeah. Chidwick has the respect from all his peers, and who are we to question those people who play against him every single day? I mean, this is way above the rim as far as high stakes poker goes in relation to the big events, the big online events, the big live events, that we are just going by what people are saying. And I think you and I have combined watched Stephen Chidwick play for more than 100 hours of poker, and we can probably safely say that he is also one of the most impressive players to watch, coming from the angle of our level. So, the fan level also has sort of my head spinning every now and then when I see him play. Then going back in time for the best player of all time, I'm going to go Phil Ivey. Okay. I just think that he came up in a time right before the poker boom. And when that poker boom really happened and exploded, he, of course, got knocked out by Chris Moneymaker in the 03 main event. He did something for about a 10-year stretch that I don't think we'll ever see again. The best at tournaments, the best at cash games, the best at no limit, the best at mixed games. It's just something that we'll probably never ever see again, to do it in that many different ways. And at the same time, being like this, I don't know, character that we never really fully comprehend. He's so mysterious. All the comparisons have been made, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan. And I think they're all fair comparisons too. And the only thing that sort of makes poker tough, and I'd love to hear opinions on this in the chat as well, and from you as well, Jeff, is that your career arc as an NBA player or as a golfer runs for a limited amount of time because you age out of the sport. So Michael Jordan had his peak, and we always remember him for his peak. We will never remember Ivey for his peak because we'll remember him for this moment in time. If he shows up tomorrow to a big live event and he gets destroyed by Stephen Chidwick, that's going to take him down a notch in the minds of some people, even though we should remember him more so for the peak of his career.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think it just shows you that you can make arguments for a couple different players in the greatest of all time discussion. So let me give you 4 names. Let me say Doyle Brunson, Phil Ivey, Chip Reese, and Daniel Negreanu.
Okay.
Is there a 5th name that you could give me that you could also make an argument for best player of all time?
I think Stu Unger comes to mind immediately. Mm-hmm. I think Stu Unger, as far as raw talent goes, is miles above the rest. If Stu Unger had all his ducks in a row and had the motivation and the drive and also the level-headedness to stay focused on the game and not on the sideshow. You know, the sports betting, we all know about his drug use.
Sure.
There's a Legends of the Game episode on PokerGO right now about Stu Unger's life that you definitely have to watch. I think Stu is the most talented cards player, and I'm saying cards player because he did not only play poker, he played gin rummy at the highest level as well. People would fly from all over the country to play gin rummy against him, and he would just call out their cards the way they had him in their hand. That's how good he was. So I think there's various different categories in which we can place these people. I think the raw talent category, it probably goes Unger, Ivy, Doyle, and then Negreanu is in my mind a really, really hard worker who has reinvented himself time and time again, which also he deserves a lot of credit for because he was way ahead of the game back in 04, 05, 06. And then the game sort of caught up with him. I can't really tell in which year it was. Maybe, you know, after Black Friday, the game caught up with him a little bit. And then instead of taking a back seat or instead of taking it easy, instead of playing only in private games with you know, big whales, he's put the pedal to the metal and started studying GTO to get back on top. So I applaud him for that as well. And of course, Doyle, you know, the godfather of poker, it goes without saying that he is a legend and, you know, probably a good mix of talent and hard work.
Okay, so that's 5 players you can make an argument for greatest player of all time. Is there a 6th?
Wow, it's tough. Did you have any names in mind for that 6th spot?
I don't know. I mean, you could say Johnny Chan, you know, and I just don't know enough. I mean, I know his tournament resume, obviously, and I know he played in the big cash games in the 80s and 90s, but, you know, I think he'd be the first to admit that tournament poker has certainly passed him by over this last decade or so. So he would kind of be close to that upper echelon, but I really don't think you can make an argument for him for best of all time. Eric Seidel, has been at the top for a long, long time. And speaking of reinventing yourself, he's kept up with the high roller fields, and that's been really, really impressive. I don't know. I mean, I know for sure that there's no one correct answer, right? But that's why I was curious if there was a certain list of players that you could narrow the GOAT discussion down to.
Exactly. Let us know in the chat who you think the 5th or the 6th person could be on this sort of, I don't know, imaginary Mount Rushmore of poker. Yeah. Which players do you think fit on there? And while you're at it in the chat, let us give us a like on this video if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook. Like this video. It helps us a lot to get noticed by your friends. And also don't forget to share this if you do enjoy the show. We're going to do much more of this. Trust me. We're going to watch more High Stakes Poker on Thursday for Run It Back, which is going to be at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern. So more chatting. Actually, I'll drink wine actually on Run It Back because it's a better time frame. Still a secret guest to be announced. But we are watching High Stakes Poker, so I can already say we are watching High Stakes Poker.
Can you give us a season?
I think we're watching the most interesting episode of season 7, which is a little later in the show. Okay. But I can be convinced to pick an old episode because we have all 7 seasons. So if enough people reach out to me with a specific episode, then I can change my mind. I'm very easy with that. You can bribe me too. I'm very easy to bribe. And with bribing, I mean just ask for it. Some names in the chat. Eric Seidel is up there. A Jungle Man, Phil Galfond. I think Phil Galfond probably has a good argument for it. I think Jungle Man falls in that raw talent category really, really highly. And then of course he's studied a lot, so he's gotten a lot better. I think Galfond and Jungle Man are 2 really good answers.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's easy to see Galfond and Jungle Man continuing at this kind of success rate over the next decade or 2 decades if they choose to stay involved in poker. That you would have a legitimate argument there for greatest of all time. I mean, the only thing that would hold them back now is just the span of their career, which is not their fault as to when they jumped into poker versus the longevity of some of the other guys that we mentioned. But again, as far as just pure talent goes and pure dominance goes, those two are at the top for sure.
Exactly. Shout out to Tom and Gregorio in the chat. Gregorio saying, "I'm running a 9-head home game. Interested?" Well, Gregorio, we're a little busy. We're a little busy. But Jeff, have you been grinding from home? Are you now an online pro? What have you been up to yourself?
Man, I've been playing some online poker 2 to 4 times a week, and that's versus probably 1 day a month back in the quote unquote real world days. So yeah, I've been trying to trying to grind, trying to win, trying to study even.
Wow, studying.
Trying to become a better poker player, I guess.
Wow. I mean, we all saw that your game needs a lot of work watching you play.
Oh
on
yeah,
stream.
trust me. Yeah, you should have seen where it was before the studying. There's a long way to go. No, it's pretty easy for me to almost, and same for you, Remko, I'm sure, to kind of naturally study, because we're just part of our jobs is just to sit there and watch the best of the best go at it. So I just think you're naturally going to get better. I'm fortunate enough to be in the booth with Brent Hanks. Most of the time we'll bash the guy. We'll give him a little bit of credit here. I think his analysis is a really good learning tool, at least for me. You sit by Maria Ho on the break desk, and I just think you can become better in so many different ways. And then just like sitting back and watching PokerGo and watching, super high rollable London replays or something to that effect. And I just think it gives you a whole new insight into the game and can only make you better. There's my sales pitch for PokerGo.
Exactly. People in the chat probably noticed that while Jeff was talking, something really bizarre happened at the table. I just scrolled back because I don't want to miss out on this moment. So,
okay.
I mean, I don't know. Let us know how you feel about this, because this hand is crazy.
In poker,
Ruffin raises with the ace king.
keep establishing that your integrity and your credibility. In other businesses,
And Doyle with
don't
queens.
care what you think of them.
So he flat calls.
I had a client the other day who owes me a lot of money.
Now, a lot of times in tournaments, this is a race situation, and all the money will get in.
So
But this is a cash game. It's a little
there's only
different.
8,200 in the middle here. Doyle against Phil Ruffin. Doyle flat calls the raise.
What are you going to do about it?
Doyle dodges an ace or king on the flop, and he checks.
Market here in Las Vegas. I've got property. I've lost a lot of money.
And another big overbet by Ruffin.
Wow.
20K from Ruffin.
2.5x.
Just incredible. But then this probably says something about how much Doyle has played against Phil Ruffin with regards with what's about to happen.
Now Doyle is at least going to call here. No, he folds.
Oh!
And
What?
Doyle
Look at the look
gives
from
him
Vanessa,
too
who
much
threw his
credit.
cards as he lifted them up.
I mean,
I can't figure this. Perhaps
does this mean that this was Phil Ruffin's first raise in history? Because what was that?
Just folds queens to one bet on the 7-3-4. I take back what I said about Doyle being the greatest of all time. But Doyle, what? Come on.
I mean,
Oh, that's a weird one.
that was crazy. I mean, I'm glad we're in the spa right now to relax a little bit after
The
that hand.
spa looks relaxing. The spa at the Bellagio.
I mean, what was that fold?
What was that fold?
Are we sure those cards were right? I mean,
Yeah, because with the way he picked him up and the way that Vanessa looked at him, yeah.
that's just
Cards are right.
too bizarre. I mean,
Yeah, that's very, very, very surprising.
wow, I can't believe you just folded queens there. Thanks to everyone in the chat reaching out. James Harris referencing a few crazy hands. Of course, the hand between Sammy Farha and Patrick Antonius, the one that is probably the most famous, is the King Queen against Jack 9. That is also on PokerGo. I believe season 5 or 6. Tough to remember, but you can probably find it. And we have a lot of classic hands right now available on our YouTube channel. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, like this video, and check out our library of videos, because we are posting a new hand, an old school hand, a classic hand, every single week on Monday morning. So you don't want to miss any of that action. And then right now, as I'm talking, I am actually gonna look up to see what the most recent hand was that we published, because obviously you guys should not be missing out on any of this stuff. Let's have a look to see what we just put out there. Oh yeah, we have Antonio against Barry Greenstein, straight flush draw, all in season 7. We also put Negreanu trying to bluff Tom Dwan with 0% equity from the season before on there. And then we have Tom Dwan cracking aces of Barry Greenstein, obviously one of the best moments. And probably the most famous hand of all time, in my opinion, as far as cash games go, Gus Hansen hitting quads against Daniel Negreanu. That's just one of those iconic moments. And now that people have been referencing it, the Jack 9 against King Queen, I'll definitely make an effort to get that one lined up as well, so you guys can all watch that hand on the YouTube channel as well. Let us know in the chat what other shows you want to watch in this format. We are watching season 7 of High Stakes Poker right now. There's obviously a ton of stuff on our platform that you can watch. Not only this, but also stuff like Poker After Dark and the World Series of Poker. Got a big hand here. We got some multi-way action. Let's see if this
He bet the amount
goes
that
anywhere.
Probably wasn't right for you to call, but you get sucked in. You know, he wasn't afraid to let you call him. You know, before that,
Silly
everyone was
man
afraid to get
springs
called by the
away.
flop.
What is it, 6,000?
6,000 total.
There's no shame in giving up. That's what I'd do if I had your
But
guys.
Ruffin decides to stay put.
I pick up
Now
the scraps
Brunson
on my
has a
team.
good
got our guys'
trapping
money.
hand.
A good trapping hand.
Wow.
It's an interesting way to phrase the 7-4 diamond.
What I find fascinating is that Phil Ruffin is capable of playing crazy hands because he has ace-8 offsuit right now, and he just called a big raise to 6,600.
Is not likely to play this hand. So, perfect scenario for Antonio. He's up against a weaker ace.
Huh.
And a nice flop for him.
So far, so good.
If this really gets big, then Doyle's going to wonder to himself, what did I do with my queens?
8,300.
38,300.
Whoa.
And Ruffin makes it 38,000.
Oh, just like that, huh?
Just like that.
Man, don't love that with the
Now,
ace-8.
Antonio has got to believe he has the best hand.
I mean, you're just folding out worse, and then better is
He
going
knows
to
if Ruffin had a big
stay.
hand, he would slow play it. As he did earlier against.
I mean, with what we've seen from Doyle with the big fold, that I can see Antonio fold this if they know the same thing about how Phil is so tight.
Yeah, if they're thinking the same way, but ooh.
Antonio's now thinking, is Phil raising any ace here?
Sell him on a flush draw.
It looks flush draw-ish.
Acting scared.
Antonio has no clubs, but he probably doesn't even think in that line of
He all
thought
in.
back in.
He's all in.
Yeah, he just rips it.
I'll take it.
Well, you got to give it to Ruffin. Very quick fold there. He raised to find out where he was, and he found out.
Oh, this was the old Remko. Let's see where I'm at.
So it's been a great battle between
My favorite
the
raise.
recreational players and the pros.
That's just incredible.
one.
I'm just finding where I'm at. Kai Ray says on YouTube, Phil Ruffin plays like a guy who owns a casino.
Yeah, that's true.
I think
Owns
that's
two of them.
that's really funny. Oh man, that's just hilarious. Stuart is saying Ruffin was horrible but hard to play against. Does that make you horrible though? If you're hard to play against?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think you can say that if you were difficult to play against. Oh, what about this question, Remko, from Dave? Who do you think will be the next female poker player to make the all-time money list top 10? It's packed full of men.
Wow.
What do you think?
That's a great question. I mean, the obvious answer that comes to mind is Kristen Bicknell. She's battling in the streets. She's playing the high roller, so Kristen probably has a leg up over almost everyone else. Maria Lempropoulos has been playing high stakes and winning. I think she has 2 7-figure scores in the last 2 years. Maria Ho is someone we have to mention, but what it takes these days to make the top 10 all-time money list, you need to grind high rollers on a regular basis, and you need to cash for, 4 to 8 million for a couple years straight to even get close to it. So, I can look up right now where the nearest female player is, but it's so tough these days with these super high rollers that unless you're competing against those players, they are gonna move further and further away from you every single year.
Yeah, it's tough, and I think you would find Selbst closest right now to that top 10. And I agree with you. I think Chrissy B certainly has the best opportunity, not just because she plays at least some of the high rollers, but because she's probably one of the best out there. I'd say this about Kristen Bicknell and Maria Ho a lot in overall tournament fields. They're not just 2 of the best female poker players. They're 2 of the best poker players that are out there. Like Remko, if we're, making bets on the World Series of Poker main event, for example, I'm sure we would each have the 2 of them very, very high on our list. So I think Kristen would have the best chance. I would put Maria right behind her. But to your point, it's just so tough to keep up with the super high rollers, the guys like Chidwick who are just firing every single 25K and up. And you have to almost keep that sort of schedule to have any kind of a shot to break in to the top 10.
Yeah, and to drop some stats on everyone, Vanessa Selbst currently still the highest ranked female player. She is 68th on the all-time money list with 11.9 million in earnings. But this is an important thing to mention. Her most recent cash for larger than 100K was in 2015.
Wow.
So she was at one point ranked 20th on the all-time money list back when she was at her peak. So that must have been right around the 2015 mark. She has since dropped 48 spots in only a few years' time. So this goes to show how high the turnover rate is at the top of the all-time money list, because she has 11.9 million in earnings, and right now she's going to drop out of the all-time money list if she doesn't get any big scores, and we know she's not focusing on poker anymore. Currently, in 100th place on all-time money list, Chris Ferguson with 9.4 million. So as soon as live poker resumes, it's going to take more than $10 million to make it into the top 100, which is absolutely insane if you think about it. I mean, the amount of money that the top female players have earned, Vanessa Selbst, the only one over 10 million. Kathy Liebert in second place currently with 6.3 million. And then Kristen Bicknell has just over 5 million, and she is in third place. Maria Ho has just over 4 million, and she is in fifth place.
Okay, so when would you set the over-under line, so to speak, of Kristen Bicknell passing Vanessa Selbst?
Wow.
As far as career tournament earnings go. She's about 7 million behind.
That's a great point. I would say it could be as early as next year.
Yeah. Yeah, really. Considering live poker comes back, of course, and within a decent amount of time, I think she could very easily, like if you set the line at December 31st, 2021, I think that's a very reasonable over-under to set. Right. Now, of course, considering we want to have live poker for the rest of 2020, maybe you push that back a little bit, but I think overall the point still stands. Where's Maria Ho?
Well, one fun stat as well about Kathy Liebert, who has 6.3 million in earnings. She was at 1.31st on the all-time money list. She is now 191st, which is just crazy.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Maria Ho is sitting on 4 million, so she has a long way to go. Some other players that are in the mix, if you go further down the list, they are nowhere close. Like Liv Barry has recently played less poker, and Annette Oberstadt hasn't played poker at all. Vanessa Russo has focused on her legal career. Then Maria Lemperpoulos is in 9th place on the female all-time money list. She has 3.3 million, most of that money coming from 2 big scores. So I would like nothing more than having multiple women up there battling. Yeah. But we haven't really seen it, and I think Kristen Bicknell is probably the only right answer at this point.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, who's the last woman that you've seen play a Poker Masters or USPO event besides Bicknell? Is it Lauren Roberts, I guess?
Lauren Roberts and Kathy Laney. They play
Kathy
those
Laney played Super High Roller Bowl Bahamas, finished in 3rd.
Yeah, Kathy Laney is now 13th on the women all-time money list with 2.7 million. I mean, she is someone who could easily, bink a few of these high rollers. And,
she played just a little bit more. And remember, Remko, she got it in with aces against sixes with 3 players left at Super High Roller Bowl Bahamas. She wins that. She has a real chance to win the whole damn thing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, we'd love to see more women at the top. That would obviously be the preferred way to have sort of a better balance between male and female players. Just looking at some of the chat here.
And Remko, by the way, here is Buddy, since he was
finally
me to kind of get involved in the podcast.
Shout out to Buddy.
Loves the camera, loves the podcast, loves the watch parties, loves high stakes poker.
Exactly. He's a huge fan of high stakes poker. Blair O'Connell is asking, who are the ladies' Mount Rushmore of poker? Now that's a question that goes back much further in time. And just to think of a few names that have sort of stood the test of time. The first one that comes to mind for me, Jennifer Harmon. I think she's number one on that list. Played cash games, high stakes for a very long time. Has never really focused on tournaments at all. So I would say she's first ballot, Jennifer Harmon. I'd say Vanessa Selbst, second ballot. She battled with the best for about a decade, played high stakes, won so many tournaments, 11.9 million in earnings, even back in 2015, like I said, 20th all time. Very much so. So that's 2 right there. After those 2, there is going to be a lot of arguments going in many different directions, because Barbara Enright deserves a lot of credit. The first female player to ever make the main event final table back in '95. I think she finished in 8th or 9th place. Maria Ho plays all the games well. Jeff, I don't want to speak for you, but do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, that's a really tough one after those first two that you mentioned. I mean, you could argue for Kathy Liebert because she's put up, 20 years of results. And I know she had a huge win around the time of the poker boom. You could argue for Kristen Bicknell because she's won a Poker Masters event. That's really tough. I would lean towards Maria Ho grabbing either the third or fourth spot on Mount Rushmore because she's been around since 2006-ish, 2007 or so. Does play all the games, does play cash, does play tournaments. But that's a really interesting, kind of thought process that goes behind who would you put on the ladies Mount Rushmore for poker. As long as of course, we're qualifying it with actual poker play. Right. Behind the scenes, you get into everything else, and you would throw Linda Johnson up there for sure, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as actual play goes, it's a really dynamic, interesting argument.
Barbara Enright finished 5th in the 1995 main event. I'm glad I remembered the year, and I'm glad I got close, but I didn't nail it all together. Jeff, for the second round of this quiz, who won the 1995 main event? Big name. Big name.
1995 was a big name?
Yeah.
Huckseed?
No, that was 96. Very close.
Oh, who is it?
Dan Harrington.
Action Dan.
Action Dan. Also at that final table, by the way, Henry Ornstein, the creator of High Stakes Poker. He finished in 8th place. Shout out to Henry. That's a great argument. I see a lot of action in the chat on people chiming in on this. Definitely arguments to be made to have Kathy on the list as well, also competing for so many years. People in the chat saying no love to Kelly Minkin. I mean, sure, Kelly's a beast. She's great. We also would love to see her do this for many more years to come. She's been making a lot of big runs, so obviously, she deserves a big shout out.
I mean, if Kelly can keep up those types of World Series of Poker main event runs that she's had over the last 5 years for the next, 10 to 15 years, even if it's just that one tournament, she's going to deserve to be in the conversation because it's something special that she's able to put together year after year in the most prestigious tournament that poker has to offer.
Exactly. Also, don't forget to like this video if you're watching on YouTube. We really appreciate it. Victoria Corn Mitchell, Vicky Corn, two-time EPT winner, very underrated is what Stuart Johnson says in the chat. I think that's true. I think she is probably very underrated. Also, doesn't have the body of work. Hasn't been around at the high stakes for a very long time, and I think other women are ahead of her on that picking order. I mean, Annette Oberstad is an interesting case. She wins the 2007 World Series of Poker Europe main event, destroys everyone, wins Online Legend, wins a $4.40 sit and go, not looking at her cards. Whether it's true or not, we don't know, but I don't really care. It's a great story. Yeah. So honestly, I think Annette probably, as far as talent goes, probably one of the most talented female players of all time. Vanessa Russo has had a ton of results. She's always done really well. I mean, there's so many names to mention. I mean, Tino is saying boo Annie Duke. I mean, Annie Duke definitely, as far as poker talent and poker skill.
If you're just talking about on-felt accomplishments,
right?
We have to judge Annie Duke just like we're judging the rest of the players that we've mentioned. But I don't think she gets up there. Her numbers are so. Remko, is her $2 million score for Tournament of Champions on her Hendon Mob? Is that listed as a part of her career winnings, even though it's an exclusive event?
Yeah, it is. It is definitely on
there.
Okay,
so that is so weighted towards that 10-person sit and go that she won for $2 million. So I don't think, off the feld, of course, it's all terrible. And then on the feld, I just don't think she measures up to the rest of the names that we've mentioned.
I think there's also a funny story behind that 2004 TOC where it was three-handed, Phil Hellmuth, Howard Lederer, and Annie Duke, and of course Howard and Annie, brother and sister.
Yeah.
I want to say there was some kind of deal made of some kind, even though the rules strictly said no deals. Yeah. And she, of course, took first, giving her a $2 million score, which helps boost her numbers a tremendous amount. Also, her second biggest score ever was winning NBC Heads Up back in 2010 for $500,000. So the biggest open score she's had ever was $160K. So
wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's way out.
She's fallen way down on the list. All right, guys. Once again, don't forget to like this video. We are at the end of this podcast. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me here on the show. We'll be back probably next week with some more exciting shows to watch. Maybe Brent's back. Who knows? Brent has kids. He always has an excuse. We don't need Brent. Is sort of what I come to conclude here on the show. Run It Back is back on Thursday on YouTube and Facebook. Don't miss it. We're watching High Stakes Poker again, taking questions, and probably diving a little bit deeper into the strategy, because I'll have a guest on the show who, unlike myself and Jeff Platt, actually knows what they're doing, which is going to be fun to watch. So for now, don't forget to subscribe, like, and do all that good stuff with this video. Let us know who you want to have on this show and also on Run It Back. And then we will be back with more action on Thursday. Thanks, Jeff.
You got it, man.